There were portions of the original Tamaraean, ancient African, records, rites and laws, which ended up in Babylon, the land of Abraham's birth. There was one called Sargon, also known as Nembroth, whom the Bible calls Nimrod, Genesis 10:8-9, who taught his people the laws which he learned as a descendant of Cush, grandson of Noah, of the ancient Kishite people of the first migration out of Oxum, Ethiopia, the seat of the angelic host called Nacharu. Thus, Sargon's people, of whom Abram was one, lived by a law that came to be called the Code of Hammurabi, which had such conditions as, if a man shall put out the eye of another, then let his own be put out. If a man shall knock out the teeth of another who is higher in rank, then let his own teeth be knocked out. The Levants, Leviathanians known as Levites of the Canaanite seed of Jebus, thus called Jebusites, took this and combined it with the teachings they stole out of Tamari, ancient Africa, forming their interpretation and translation found in Exodus 21:23-24, which states, "And if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot." The Code of Hammurabi is engraved on the black basalt stele, which is 7 feet 5 inches high. The top portion depicts the ruler Hammurabi with Shamash, the sun god, wherein Shamash is presenting to Hammurabi a staff and ring, which symbolize the power to administer the law. The Code of Hammurabi was a body of laws used to govern his kingdom and is the same code that is used today to control the New Babylon, Western society headed by the USA. This code consisted of 282 provisions systematically arranged under headings such as family, labor, personal property, real estate, trade and business. Hammurabi was the first known administrator of that time period, thus he was responsible for a high centralized government and promotion of the welfare of the people of his empire. Every citizen was to obey his laws, just the same as in the New Babylon. The government has set up his penal system along with the other 5 Ps, philosophy, psychology, politics, and polytheism, and everyone was to obey it without choice, even though, on the other hand, in the Pledge of Allegiance, it states with liberty and justice for all, but remember now, only for the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, Dagon the fish man or sea man, Leviathan, moon god. Hammurabi is the most famous of the rulers of more recent Babylon, was a Phoenician Moor, and his name means Hamu or Hamat, black, and Rabi, lord or master. He united the city-states of Mesopotamia and governed them well. During his rule, the laws which were passed down of Sargon I were set down in a uniform way. So as you can see, societies have always had rules to guide people's actions, and in early times laws were usually passed down by word of mouth. Thus younger members of a society would learn the rules from the older members. To help you further understand what we are speaking about, you have to be made to see that prior to Hammurabi, a group of people would often be given the job of remembering all the laws and deciding if they had been broken. Under this system, justice depended on the opinion of a small group of people, or even on only one person. There was no list of laws to which anyone could go for guidance. Yet the laws under Hammurabi were collected, classified and listed by societies, and from that time on judges could decide someone's guilt or innocence by looking at the written law instead of deciding for themselves that judgment should be passed. The Code of Hammurabi has told historians much about life in ancient Mesopotamia, where women held a high position in society and foreigners were treated well, while there were many laws that regulated industry and trade, proving that these must have been important activities. The code also indicated that land was owned privately, but peasants who rented land could not be put off the land until their leases ran out. Marriage was a legal contract and both husband and wife had definite rights. Even though a wife was thought to be the property of her husband, she could return to her family if her husband mistreated her. A divorced woman was allowed to keep her children. Also, women were allowed to conduct business and had the same rights in business as men did. People who falsely accused others of crimes received punishment that the accused would have received. If a city was not able to catch a thief, that city had to pay the victim of the robbery. Members of society had special duties toward their neighbors. For example, a farmer who did not keep his dikes in good repair had to pay for any flood damage to the fields of his neighbors. If he could not pay, the farmer could be sold into slavery. Doctors' fees were regulated by the code. A doctor could be punished for injuring a patient or for failing to do what he had promised to do. However, justice in more recent Babylon did not apply equally to everyone. Crimes committed against nobles were punished more severely than those against ordinary people, farmers or slaves. But nobles also received severe punishment for their crimes, and punishment by death was not uncommon. As you can see by what you have just read, the Code of Hammurabi, which is clear to see is still followed today, is telling you that you are not included in their plans. They have you that are of Tamaraean, ancient African, mentally enslaved under the 5 Ps. The divine origin of the written Code of Hammurabi, which was actually taken from the laws of the Sumerian, ancient Babylonian, angelic host known as the Anunnaki, is emphasized by a bas-relief in which Hammurabi is shown receiving the code from the sun god, Shamash. The quality most usually associated with this sun god Shamash is justice or judgment. As such, this code was set down in horizontal columns of cuneiform writing, 16 columns of text on the obverse side and 28 on the reverse. The text begins with an introduction that explains the extensive restoration of the temples and religious cults of Babylonia and Assyria. The code itself, composed of 28 paragraphs, seems to be a series of amendments to the common law of Babylonia, rather than a strict legal code. It begins with direction for legal procedure and the statement of penalties for unjust accusations, false testimony, and injustice done by judges. Then it addresses laws concerning property rights, loans, deposits, debts, domestic property, and family rights. The sections covering personal injury indicate that penalties were imposed for injuries sustained through unsuccessful operations by physicians and for damages caused by neglect in various trades. Rates were fixed in the code for various forms of service in most branches of trade and commerce. The Code of Hammurabi contained no laws having to do with religion, and the basis of criminal law was that of equal retaliation, comparable to the Semitic law of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. The law offered protection to all classes of Babylonian society, and sought to protect the weak and the poor, including women, children, and slaves, against injustice at the hands of the rich and powerful, again all of which is much like the laws or present-day Western societies. The Code of Hammurabi ends with an epilogue glorifying the mighty works of peace executed by Hammurabi, and explicitly states that he had been called by the gods to cause justice to prevail in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evil. He describes the laws in his compilation as enabling the land to enjoy stable government and good rule, and he states that he had inscribed his words on a pillar in order that the strong may not oppress the weak, that justice may be dealt the orphan and the widow. Hammurabi counsels the downtrodden in these words: "Let any oppressed man who has a cause come into the presence of my statue as king of justice, for he was a Melchizedek to his Nubian Phoenician brethren, and have the inscription on my stele read out, and hear my precious words, that my stele may make the case clear to him. May he understand his cause, and may his heart be set at ease." A quote which is just like the saying on the tablet held in the hand of the New York Statue of Liberty. Exodus 22:21-23, "Thou shalt neither vex a stranger, nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ye shall not afflict any widow, or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry." Psalms 82:3-4, "Defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked." If you investigate these facts carefully, you will be able to see the laws which you are being forced to adhere to are made up, written and enforced by the pale pagan worshippers of Baal, which is further proven by the fact that the very priest of Baal called Qamaran, black-robed priests, taken from the word Qam, which when you look at one of its derivatives Kaman, you will see it means sun pillar, the very pillar which was used in idolatrous worship and was recognized as a symbol of the solar god Baal on the tablet which has the Code of Hammurabi. Many so-called European scholars have finally admitted that the so-called casuistic religious laws consist of two parts. The first part states a condition such as, if a man steals an ox or a sheep, and kills it or sells it, and the second part the legal consequences such as, he shall pay 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep, such as those found in Exodus 22:1, where it states, if a man shall steal an ox, or a sheep, and kill it, or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep. These laws generally concern problems that arise in agricultural and town life. The casuistic laws are similar in structure, and frequently in content, to laws found in the Code of Hammurabi. Thus they are the very laws which the humane, Caucasian Anglos and Pale Arab Emirate, religious hierarchy has made and enforces, which comes from the Code of Hammurabi. Hammurabi was a Bedouin and as such a stock of Phoenician, a mixture of Nubian and East Indian stock, and as such Hammurabi was seen as being the personification of the sun god Ra, their own Phoenician Melchizedek, not to be confused with Re nor to be confused with Neter-Tahuti, who is also called Melchizedek. Remember, this Phoenician Hindu group took what they learned from the original Sumerian Tarets of Tamaraean, ancient African, origins and genealogy and made it to fit in with their Hinduistic ways. Hammurabi, whose mind was possessed by the forces of 6 ether, was being used by Sin or Zun or Leviathan to open the way for the ghost seed to usurp the Hindu, Bedouin, 6 ether, being and put the ghost seed in control. As such Hammurabi was their Phoenician Hindu, Melchizedek called Zeded, Zodok, by the meaning messenger of justice, being he was seen as being the messenger of the god Shamash, also called Ahura Mazda, being an incarnation of a spirit into flesh to dwell amongst them, the Phoenicians. Again, the original Phoenicians were Aryans, a Sanskrit word which is now used by the Caucasians. Remember, you have Hindu, Indians, with black skin and 6 ether straight hairs on up to 7 ether wavy, and albino Hindus called by the Europeans the original Pale Asiatic black men, Aryan Hindu. Both of these groups have Christ as their God, though he was originally called Krishna or Melchizedek and was the same being of the same order, called by them the order of Melchizedek, which the ancients called the order of sin, not to be confused with the Essenic order of Melchizedek. Both groups received their knowledge from the Tamarayan Kharost, yet they vamped down on it, replacing it with their Krishna, who eventually became Christ, which led to the crisis of the world today. The light-skinned Phoenicians with 7 ether to 6 ether straight hair were also known as Hyksos or Hekakasut, shepherd kings, and the word Palestine comes from Philistine or Philistinia, meaning a migrant. Thus these people actually mixed in with the Caucasian clean lepers of the land of Gerar, birthing the 6 ether ghost-skinned beings, which is why the story in Genesis 26:1-11 and Genesis 22-18 are the exact same story. These Philistines were all descendants of the original who came into a portion of Tama-Re called Gerar. Genesis 26:1-11, and there was a famine in the land, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech king of the Philistines unto Gerar. And the Lord appeared unto him, and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of, sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee, and unto thy seed, I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father, and I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because that Abraham obeyed my voice, and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar, and the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, She is my sister, for he feared to say, She is my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech king of the Philistines looked out at a window, and saw, and, behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac, and said, Behold, of a surety she is thy wife, and how saidst thou, She is my sister? And Isaac said unto him, Because I said, Lest I die for her. And Abimelech said, What is this thou hast done unto us? One of the people might lightly have leaned with thy wife, and thou shouldest have brought guiltiness upon us. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, He that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Genesis 22-18, And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, She is my sister, and Abimelech king of Gerar sent, and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, Behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, She is my sister? And she, even she herself said, He is my brother, in the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this. And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me, therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live, and if thou restore her not, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou, and all that are thine. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning, and called all his servants, and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham, and said unto him, What hast thou done unto us? And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou, that thou hast done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought, Surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed she is my sister, she is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness which thou shalt show unto me, at every place whither we shall come, say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and women servants, and gave them unto Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before thee, dwell where it pleaseth thee. And unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver, behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes, unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech, and his wife, and his maidservants, and they bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech, because of Sarah Abraham's wife. The 5 P's known as the 5 principles of the Caucasian system are polytheism, politics, penal, philosophy, and psychology is what's sadly keeping our many members of humanity under the spell of Leviathan, much of which was taken from the time of King Hammurabi and is used until this very day, the New Babylon. Again, many members of humanity are deeply caught up under the hypnotic spell of Leviathan, which has so many of you thinking that you could get somewhere in his society through the 5 Ps, yet only for many to learn that you have no future in his society but instead in Africa. Remember, the 5 principles are enforced to destroy you: Tamaraeans, Nubians, Caribbean, Barica, Latinos, Hispanics, and Africans, and keep you mentally enslaved. The present-day modern Babylonian system is based on these 5 Ps. 1. Polytheism, the belief in and worship of many deities. This society specializes in the promotion of freedom of worship, be it man, object, or the creator. The Caucasian has gone into every part of the world to destroy the natives' people's belief system and way of life to promote his way of life as a means of control. He spreads this polytheism with his organization called the Red Cross, which is supposed to be a Christian missionary group to help the peoples of the world that are suffering. But the people must accept its doctrine to get the assistance, and those who refuse receive the Red Cross or Red Crescent, meaning they slaughter those that oppose them. 2. Politics, the science of winning and holding control of the government. The Caucasian race made very good use of this principle, to the point of giving Tamaraeans, Africans, the illusion that they have a part in the system. 3. Psychology, the study of the mind and behavior of Nubians through his miseducation. They are able to program you with courses that have no background, benefits, nor meaning, such as sociology, etc. 4. Philosophy, an explanation, or theory of the universe based entirely on conversation, not facts, but mythology. 5. Penal system, relating to the laws and punishments of Nimrod, laid by Hammurabi. The 5-pointed star relates to their 5-point system, later to be known as the Pentagon, from the pentagram meaning 5 in remembrance of the 5 tribes that the Iroquois nation, Native Americans, accepted and shared their constitution with only to be betrayed. These 5 tribes were the Irish, Polish, Scottish, French and British, German, and their 5 pillars of faith, which are the 5 Ps. The letter P is symbolic of 3 word parts in Euro-Freemasonry's old constitution known as Hallowell or Requiems. There is a way to tell which laws are divinely inspired as opposed to those that are not, and this is based on your willingness to research and learn languages and events in order to understand how the so-called present-day scriptures as they are held in the hands of members of humanity came about. You have everything to gain by doing this and only your most precious gift, your soul, to lose by not doing this. The laws in the book of Leviticus were stole from the original laws of Tama-Re and mistranslated by the disagreeable priests of the Levants who call themselves Levites or Jews, Jebusites, today. It was these priests whom the Most High Heavenly Father said blasphemed his name in Hosea 4:6, "My people are destroyed, for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children." They are the ones of whom Malachi 2:8 is referring to when it states, "But ye are departed out of the way, ye have caused many to stumble at the law, ye have corrupted the covenant of Levi, saith the Lord of hosts." They are the Pharisees who broke off from the original law and claimed they received a more profound revelation which was not written down at the time, called the Talmud oral law. Eventually it took the place of the written laws, much like in the churches where the original laws of the book of Revelations and the books of John and Barnabas were replaced with writings of Paul, so too were the original laws of Abraham, Noah and the Thutmoses. The Moses was replaced by the Talmud and Mishnah, and the original law of the Garun was replaced by the misinterpreted Quran and its Hadith. And with this knowledge we choose to adhere to the laws of the original scriptures, tablets, parchments and teachings before the mistranslations and wrong interpretations and the removal of true Tamaraean, ancient African, doctrines occurred. There are also the Elba tablets. The name Ebla means white rock, and refers to the limestone outcrop on which the city was built. Although the site shows signs of continuous occupation since before 3000 BC, its power grew and reached its apogee in the second half of the following millennium. Ebla's first best or greatest point was between 4000 and 2240 BC. Its name is mentioned in texts from Akkad around 2300 BC. Most of the Ebla Palace tablets, which date from that period, are about economic matters. They provide a good look into the everyday life of the inhabitants, as well as many important insights into the cultural, economic, and political life of northern Syria and Near East around the middle of the 3rd millennium BC. The texts are accounts of the state revenues, but they also include royal letters, Sumerian Eblate dictionaries, school texts and diplomatic documents, like treaties between Ebla and other towns of the region. Ebla's most powerful ruler was listed as Ebrium, or Ibrium, from which you get the Hebrew word Abram and the Arabic word Ibrahim, which is all one and the same if you look closely at the phonetics. He, Ebrium, is recorded to have concluded the so-called treaty with Ashur, which offered the Assyrian king Tudia the use of trading post officially controlled by Ebla. Genesis 14:13, "And there came one that had escaped, and told Abram the Hebrew, For he dwelt in the plain of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner, and these were confederate, partners, allies, with Abram. The fifth and last king of Ebla during this period was Abraham's son, Ibbi-Sippish, Isaac, the first to succeed in a dynastic line, Genesis 15:2-3, thus breaking with the established Eblate custom of electing its ruler for a fixed term of office, lasting 7 years. This absolute genetic succession led to the unrest that was ultimately instrumental in the city's decline. In the meantime, however, the reign of Ibbi-Sippish was considered a time of inordinate prosperity, in part because the king frequently traveled abroad. Genesis 15:2-3, and Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing one go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus, capital of Syria? And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and, lo, one born in my house is mine heir. Genesis 26:1-3, and there was a famine in the land, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. And the Lord appeared unto him, and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of, sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee, and unto thy seed, I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. Ebla was a major commercial center, and its major commercial rival was city called Mari. Thus Ebla is suspected to have had a hand in Mari's first destruction. The tablets reveal that the city's inhabitants owned about 200,000 head of mixed cattle, sheep, goats, and cows. The city's main articles of trade were timber from the nearby mountains, and from Lebanon, and textiles, mentioned in Sumerian texts from the city-state of Lagash. Most of its trade seems to have been directed towards Mesopotamia, chiefly Kish, and contacts with Egypt are attested by gifts from Pharaohs Khafra and Pepi I. Handicrafts also were a major export. Exquisite artifacts have been recovered from the ruins, including wood furniture inlaid with mother-of-pearl and composite statues created from different colored stones. The artistic style at Ebla may have influenced the quality work of the following Akkadian Empire. The city appears to have been ruled by a merchant upper class that elected a king and entrusted the city's defense to paid soldiers. Genesis 14:14, and when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. Some well-known Semitic deities appear at Ebla: Dagon, Ishtar, Resheph, Canish, Hadad, and some otherwise unknown ones, Kura, Nidakal, plus a few Sumerian gods, Enki and Ninki, and Hurrian gods, Ashtapi, Hebat, and Ishara. There was a change in the theophoric names shown in many of the tablets found in the archive from El to Yah, indicated in the example of the transition from Michael to Micaiah. This is considered by some to actually be where many Old Testament names found in the book of Genesis that have not been found in other Near Eastern languages came from, for they do have similar forms in Eblate. Some examples of this are Adamu, Adam, Hawa, Eve, Jabal, Abarama, Abraham, Bilhah, Ishmael, Israel, Esau, Michael, Micaiah, Saul, David, etc. Also found are many biblical locations, for example Ashtaroth, Sinai, Jerusalem, Hazor, Lachish, Gezer, Dor, Megiddo, Joppa, etc.